Burning our way through hour number 2 here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Welcome back inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, so I can continue to enlighten cats by serving up questions to cats that normally express themselves on the bandstand. And here is an opportunity now to continue on with a dear friend of the program and a guy who is continuing to stretch the vocabulary of music and the sonic nature of live music. David Margen, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake. How you doing?
I'm good. Good to hear you, brother. I'm good.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving, man.
You too, man. And a shout out to my brother Jerry Cortez, who just finished. So I'm
so thankful. I'm thankful this weekend because I'm on fire right now, man.
Yeah, Jerry. Jerry's just a great player, great guy, and we've had a lot of fun together over the years.
No, you know what? I don't know if you caught the tail end. The tail end, he was talking. I was just talking about overcoming adversity in music, and he literally just said that for many, many years, he'd get a call saying, well, my phone's going to, your phone's going to get shut off tomorrow or this, that, and ultimately something would come along. But what he was really talking about was saying, well, I'm not going to just be a blues player. I'm not going to just be a jazz player. I mean, if somebody wants me to do this, do you play slide? Sure, yeah, I play slide. I mean, even if he didn't really have his chops together, he did it. And talking about Sunday Paper, I just wanted you to talk about the idea, since we talked from last year, how you guys have grown insofar as getting a fan base together locally and then playing original music in this time period. I mean, how have you guys grown, do you think, over the last year, and how much of it is about ultimately being as diverse as possible and trying to play as much, incorporating different stuff in, but if in general, just talking about the evolution of Sunday Paper?
Okay, well, let's see. It's been, I guess it's almost 2 years now that I've been doing this, and Sunday Paper is kind of my main project now, and excuse me, I got a cold today, so I'm going to cough a little bit, but it's a great band, and I think that it's really, we have our roots really in East Bay funk in a lot of ways because, Jeff Tamalier, who was our guitarist, was with Tower Power for 10 years, and he's actually the band leader. And Jeff and I have been writing over the last year, so we're starting to bring in some more original stuff. And it's kind of, it's sort of morphed into this band where we all get a chance to really stretch all different styles during the night, which for me is a big added bonus because I've always been a player that has prided myself in being able to cover and enjoy and actually play as many genres as possible.
Absolutely.
I was kind of cracking up a couple months ago. We had Tony Lindsay, who sang with Santana Forever After Alex, and we went from Smoke on the Water into skunk funk, and it was like, it was like, Jesus, we can cover all these different genres and different types of music, and so it makes for a really fun evening because everybody in the band is great, and we've been doing this thing for the last couple of years. I'm not sure if we're going to change this up or not. We're kind of talking about it, but where we bring in a different guest vocalist pretty much every month, and there's great vocalists around here to choose from, and we have sort of a regular rotation in that seat, and that also makes it more interesting because you're doing different stuff every month, and you rehearse with whoever man or woman is going to be singing, and that's really cool.
I just want to ask you, the Sunday paper in the original formation does not have, it was all instrumental music. There was no, I mean, you bring in a guest vocalist because you didn't have a singer before.
Right, and that's what we do. We bring in a guest vocalist. Now we're talking about next year changing things up some and doing some more recording, and if that's the case, then I think we'll probably would be settling more on one person to do that. We've been talking to Alex Leisure about it, and he's into it. He came up and sang with us last month.
Dude, you have no idea. I mean, if I was Donald Trump, I would have flown in for that, I mean,
That's because you'd have your own plane.
That's right, exactly, man. I mean, all I'm saying is I think it's really, I guess here's the ultimate question. Aside the ability to play a wide bag of music, is it also like, do you find yourself saying like, you still feel invigorated because the band is growing? Like, how can you tell that there's growth in a band like this? I mean, just to talk to cats all over the world. I mean, if they're trying to, if they're too in the forest to see outside, how can you tell if a band is truly growing?
When their magic happens and those magical moments start to exceed those non-magical moments, so that you're listening to each other, you're growing, you get this sort of innate feeling for the guy next to you that you kind of understand where he might go and work with that. And I think that is how a band grows. It's like, if a drummer plays a fill, and then we just kind of magically go into it at the same time and play the same thing. That's when you're growing, because it's not like, it's different than if you're playing jazz every night on the set. You're growing in a different way, but we kind of try and grow more in a pocket sort of way too.
I dig.
So it's, growth is really, it's really different. Some guys, don't want to hear the same thing ever again, that is one form of playing. There's other guys that go out and play the same stuff every night and play it super rehearsed, and it sounds the same, and that gets real boring real fast. I've done it in certain bands that I've been in, because you're expected to do that. They want to hear the hits. They want to hear the hits played a certain way. So you're locked in on those songs at least. So, you can change them up a little bit, but so there's many different extremes on the bandstand. For me these days, it's not all about chops. It's about pocket and backing your brother up on stage and playing together and listening, and like I said, those magical moments.
And I guess when the propensity of them occur at a higher rate each night is also, that you're growing when you have those magical moments. When people call it the level of coincidences go up. It's that magic when it begins to become a nightly occurrence, multiple times a night, is really. I think, to me, I think it's really cool. I also wonder, my final question on this on Sunday Pape is, you guys are out in Martinez. I mean, have you found an enclave of willing fans? I mean, for full disclosure, I visited Dave in Berkeley, and I mean, people are losing their minds with the gentrification out there. Have you found a pocket, pardon the pun, of paper fans?
Oh yeah, it's actually very, very cool, because what we've been playing once or twice a month, and which I should interject, when you're touring, you're playing every night, it's easier to hit that magic because every night you're together and you're growing. It's a little harder when you're only playing a few times a month.
That's right.
But, yeah, we got a great fan base out there. We've been selling out pretty much every show we do. And, I mean, it's kind of getting known around here, this little Sunday thing we do, people come out and just kind of get their minds blown. Everybody plays their ass off, and we play hard. That was one thing I was thinking about recently. Is I play hard, man. When I go on the bandstand, I'm not just sort of standing there and phoning it in. It's like I get off and I'm drenched, and it's not because I'm running or dancing around like I used to when I was younger. But I mean.
Yeah, you're just rocking. You're just keeping your groove, man. No, I mean it's so. I mean, also with the Sunday paper. Let's be clear. I mean, that is the New York Times is an example. That's a little bit of everything. So you're talking about some skunk funk into soul. So you're giving them everything. You're giving them a little bit of everything. I mean, I dig the concept. I mean, one thing I love to do with Margen is go back in the time capsule and then turn it into today. And I'm going to read this quote from a cat who I connected with. He said, by the time I got to Berkeley, California, I was young, but was well-versed in music. Peter Margen was very, very dedicated to the guitar. We decided we were going to form this band. I became the manager or frontman. I had just moved to Berkeley, had nowhere to go. These guys didn't know that. They were just starting out anyway. I used to go over to the Margen's house and practice. All these drummers came through. A young Johnny Otis came through, and Peter's little brother David was there. He was just dedicated to the bass. He would join in. He was like 12 years old. We started to play parties. Peter was into heavy blues rock, which is something I was not familiar with. I was trying to bring in the syncopation, James Brown kind of stuff. We would hang out all the time. This is classic. We were so anti-establishment. We were all seriously into music. At this point, I became very close to the Margen family. I was living right up the hill from them. David was going to another alternative school. He was on a very targeted trajectory as far as music. He shot like a cannon straight out. He had hair down to his waist at that time. I ate beef stroganoff for the first time at the Margen's house.
My mom was a good cook.
Oh, man. So that's Jeffrey Greer for the record. I mean, but let's talk about, Peter Margen was not on my radar prior to connecting with Jeffrey Greer. Can you talk about your brother's influence, not just on you, but his approach to the guitar? And I mean, he sounds like a cat straight out of the Jake Feinberg bag.
Now, Peter's an incredibly great guitar player, and he was actually playing guitar back when because I started on drums, and Peter and I had this little band together. I played drums and he played guitar. I don't know if I talked about this in the last interview.
No, you did not. No.
Okay.
Go.
And so, I mean, it was probably god-awful, but I had, like, a little snare and a kick and a hi-hat, I think, and we were, like, and Peter just had an acoustic guitar, and my parents would drive us around, and we'd play at parties, and that was kind of the beginning, and then from there, we had bands together until I was probably about 14, I think it was. We had a band called Tuwaka with two drummers, actually. One was Johnny Otis, and Johnny Otis Jr., who's, Johnny's been a big influence on me because he's taught me Latin and taught me a lot of different stuff. Then we had another drummer named Kim Plainfield who he lives in New York now, and I think he's big in the drum collective out there.
Really?
Teacher, educator, yeah.
Can you spell the name? Can you spell the name of this band?
Tuwaka, like the liquor, Tuaca.
Tuwaka, and you had double drums going on. That is.
Yeah, we had double drums, two guitars, and bass, and it was kind of different back then to have two drummers. I guess it was kind of like the Allman Brothers thing.
It was like a Joe Cocker kind of, double.
Yeah, right. Because Because back then, I think actually the Grateful Dead only had one drummer.
Well, Mickey was kicked out of the band for a minute. At least
actually, but I don't think Mickey didn't start in the band though. Man, it was Kreuzman for a long time, and then Mickey came in.
Well,
and,
it was.
I think. I mean, I'm not a Deadhead.
No, you're not. No, even though we're all going ahead. But the thing is that it was. Yeah, I interviewed Butch Trucks a couple months ago. The Dead were the first band to do 2 drummers, but then Mickey's father stole a bunch of money. He was booted, and at that time, through '74, it was a solo drummer. But in the sense of Johnny Otis, he was playing was he playing like, was it kind of out of the, I'm not going to say the same thing as Willie Bobo and Mongo, but I mean, was he doing Latin stuff as opposed to Kim was playing, just holding it down? How did that?
No, kind of back then. That was sort of before even Johnny or I got into Latin. It was more it was a trip because I mean it was like we were really young, but we were playing all original music, no covers. We wrote everything, and in fact, there's this tape, man, I've been trying to run down. We recorded live at KPFA, which is this revolutionary radio station in Berkeley that's been there since the 60s. And we did this live show, I remember, at their station in the studio. And I've always been looking for that tape, but never could come up with it.
It's still, I mean, the radio station's still functioning today.
Oh, yeah. Wow. KPFA is like the revolutionary radio station, the original one. And it's still extremely left politically, and they do a lot of good stuff and a lot of interesting stuff musically also. But
Peter was Peter the leader of the band? I mean,
no, there was really no. I mean, back then bands didn't really have leaders. I mean, it was just it was kind of a free for all. We used to rehearse in my parents' house, and there were a whole ton of stairs to get up to my folks' house, and we used to we rehearsed in this one room on the top story, and everybody would be coming in and out of the house. Johnny Otis was practically living there. My mom was cooking for everybody.
Stroganoff. Oh, I need some of that.
And it was just this crazy scene, man, where we would rehearse every afternoon after school, and it was this one room, and it was loud as hell, and but it was really fun. I mean, that was kind of around, I think. We were all into Traffic and all this different stuff, and then we got, started listening to Tower, and that kind of changed things. And it was just a bunch of really creative kids running around playing music, and the fact that we were again doing originals was really cool because we all started writing when I was the youngest guy in the band. Everybody else was about 3 years older than I was. They were all ahead of me. And so that kind of, so I did a lot of stuff with my brother until I was about 14 or 15, and then we kind of each went on our own separate ways, and Peter put a band together, I think it was called Arm & Hammer, that he did for a long time. He's kept he keeps dabbing in music throughout. He does a lot of recording at home. He's had a couple different bands that have put out records. One's called the Calico Cats, and it's actually a really great CD. But he's been a large influence on me. I think that there was some stuff between us back in the olden days. Some rivalry in a way because I started then getting the better gigs, and when I got the Santana gig, it was he was really happy and proud for me, but I think it was kind of hard.
Sure.
Probably, he's the older brother being in the shadow. So we've talked through all that stuff over the years, and we're fine now.
I just like the fact that, a 12-year-old David Margen being serious. I picture this scowling person just looking at the bass and just peppering people with these notes. But you were, these alternative schools, what does that mean exactly? These were not like your typical academic schools. These were devoted to music programs. How would you define these schools? Because have you ever heard of a book, Jay, called The Open Classroom? I think it was called by
educator named Herbert Cole?
No, I'm going to write it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back in the early 70s in Berkeley, there was all this alternative education going on, and it was, as I look back now, the education that I got out of a lot of it was kind of a joke, and thank God I've always had music to fall on.
Yeah, I can't see it being a very invigorating academic environment, but
I finally got a little more academic in my last year at high school, but no, it wasn't. We're talking about one class we had was called suburban experience. We like go into a Ford Econoline van, drive out to the suburbs, and ask people what it was like to live in the suburbs.
This is a Jake Feinberg at school. I need. This is my kind of school, man.
Oh, man. It was crazy. But in any case, so I was involved in all these different alternative schools, and but by the time I was in ninth grade, there was a sub-school at Berkeley High School called School of the Arts, and this was really cool. That it was really devoted to arts, and we had a music teacher, a guy by the name of Herbert Mims, who was the musical director of the Whispers at the time, and so he would bring in like the drummer and the bass player from the Whispers to show us how to play, and I think the class was called Rock and Soul or something like that, and he was the guy that actually taught me how to read chord charts and be able to go in and do a session or something and be able to read chord charts, and it was really educational. And then I spent, I guess, 3 years at School of the Arts where I was taking academics, but there were like all these different subset of alternative schools within Berkeley High School and outside of Berkeley High School. So it was, they had a lot of acting. In fact, a bunch of the executives that came out of Bill Graham Presents, where Bill Graham Presents worked with Berkeley High School, because they used to do concerts at the community theater in Berkeley.
Wow.
So a lot of those guys got their training there, and they went on to become Bill's right-hand men, the Barsotis and everybody else at Myeries. All these people that ended up being high up in the Bill Graham organization came out of that too. So it was a pretty ripe scene. And I had the cush gig of being president of the jazz band for a couple of years, so that kind of...
You were the president of the jazz band?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Were you doing dude, I could not think of a... You were definitely not playing standards. Please tell me you were writing your own charts.
No, we were doing some of both back then at that point, and and I remember we went to Reno. There used to be this big jazz band competition from all the schools would go to Reno, and the judges wrote me up for not playing enough skip on the straight ahead. Doing what they were saying I was playing as two straight aheads. I was like, what? Come on, guys.
This is a question that popped into my head. I've been doing, relentlessly talking to African jazz artists, and going back to the motherland of Africa, and I also got this gig, as I told you before, producing a documentary on Stan Getz, and
right.
Getz. What's interesting is he was an international star. He lived in Europe for a while, but in some ways Stan was as popular or more popular in places like Brazil because of obviously his, the girl from Ipanema and all that stuff.
Right, his collaboration with,
And this was before interconnection, where you'd put a thing on YouTube, and there'd be a viral video, and then there's, you're world famous. This was like you had to go there and gig and play your music. And I wanted to talk about Santana. Two-part question. Did you ever play in Africa? And could you talk about a time on the bandstand with Santana outside of the States where you were like, wow, this is even more, these guys are more rabid about our music than in the States?
So first question is no. We never went to Africa. In fact, we never even went to Latin America when I was in the band because in '72 they were in Peru and all their equipment got impounded. I guess they were looking for drugs at that point, and something happened, and with the promoter and money, in any case, all their equipment got impounded, and I don't think they ever got most of it back. And so there was a moratorium on us going to South America at that point. But as far as places, I mean, European audiences are always... to me, really excited.
Absolutely.
And actually, I mean, we always played bigger venues in Europe than we did in the U.S. Pretty much. I mean, broke the Rolling Stones records in France.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, back then it was like Europe was. I mean, we did well in the States always, but Europe was definitely. Bigger venues usually.
Did you guys tend to take? I mean, because those cats, and I was just transcribing this thing with Al Di Meola, and he never thought he'd ever go back to playing the electric guitar, but he had all this success in Europe. But he just said the European mindset is always they're up for anything. And
yeah, they are.
Yeah, did you find the band stretched out or even experimented more on the bandstand in Europe too?
Good question. I mean, Santana played the same set every night. There were some parts in some of the songs where there was more stretch, and but as far as being able to stretch farther, no. I mean, it wasn't really that kind of band. It was, go up and do our show, and I think that. We probably played harder in Europe because, you're getting more of an audience response. And, bands are very responsive to the crowd, which I always am.
No, you're totally 100% right. I mean, the track we led in with was from a concert in '77, and I don't sit and pretend to be an aficionado or somebody who dwells on a lot of Santana music, but this period of the show, Carlos sort of just finished a couple of chords, and then Coster came in with like this ambient sort of synth music, and then all of a sudden it's you locking this groove, playing this repetitive groove, and Carlos got behind you playing conga drums, and then there were obviously Raul was also playing. I mean, was there a period of time where in every show where you actually were able to go do bass solo, bass drums, where that part could really stretch out?
Oh yeah, I got a major solo every night.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I got a 5 or 10 minute solo every night. And not when I first joined. It took a year or two to get it to that point. But and actually, man, I don't want to brag, but it was the crowd loved it, man.
No, I don't want to. I
got a standing ovation every night. I mean, it was high energy, and so yeah, it was nice to be able to get a feature. And be able to stretch and play and see how far I can take it out or whatever.
I bring you on the show to brag, so you can brag.
Oh, come on.
But because there are some relentless. There are clips of you, Dave Margen, epic bass solo. But I mean,
I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you try? Those are ridiculous. But did you make it a point to try to not ever play the same solo once? I mean, did you try to change it up a lot, and was Carlos into that? I mean, 10 minutes solo. That's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I kept trying to expand it, and there were a few years when I was told to tighten it up a little bit.
You get too far out, yeah.
Well, just like or too long, because I got kind of to the point where I would play by myself for a while, and then bring in bass. I mean, bring in keyboards and drums, play behind it. But no, I mean, it was somewhat formulaic in that every night had the same intro and outro of it, and because I was being accompanied, and it's Santana is not a free-form band, so I mean, people are coming and wanting to see a show, so So I mean, within it, yeah, I would change things up, but I would also sort of keep a central structure, more like a song in a way than just completely taking it out. But it was, it was. I mean, it was towards the end of the set every night, and I got a really good response, and it was a lot of fun. And it was definitely, I think, the high point of the night for some people, which was really an honor to be able to do that.
We have a game on this program called Name That Voice, and I wanted to put this in for you. I want you to marinate on it for a minute, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Okay.
DC.
August 11th, 1985.
Right. Billy goes up to slams the sticks down on the snare, walks out to the front of the stage, grabs my mic, and goes off on this completely packed house about them with the chanting, and Jerry and Bobby, and went off on them, and came over and put his arm around me and pulled me to the center of the stage, and used, and the F-bombs flew, and said, "This is my friend. I invited him. He's a world-class guitar player. He's a great blah, 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 blah. And you better start blah, blah, blah after treating him with respect. Let me hear it for Kevin Russell." And the whole place got on their feet. Now, he spoke. And I was like, I just looked at Billy, and I was like teary-eyed.
Wow, this is unbelievable.
The word for the rest of the dates. Then we got to San Francisco, and we did show. Excuse me.
Well, all right, he revealed who that was.
He revealed his name.
He revealed his name. So
I was trying to figure out who the heck that was.
If he had
revealed it.
Yeah, but Kevin Russell. That to me would be a seminal moment. Do you remember Billy stopping the gig and berating the crowd?
No, I don't actually, tell you the truth.
Well, I'm glad. But I mean, go ahead.
I mean, but who knows, man? Maybe that was an interesting time period. So my memory is not as good as.
Yeah, well, to me, like, having Russell on the program was epic because he took, the whole thing. I'll send you the interview because he's talking about, do you remember meeting Kevin Russell originally, how you actually connected with him?
God, I don't really remember how. I think maybe it was, he had this band, what was it called? 707.
That's
I think
right.
it was, or
That's
something
right,
like
yeah.
that. And so I think I met him through the years, like down at Fantasy or something like that. I think they were working down there while I was working down there, and Fantasy Records recording studios. And but I mean, I get why Billy might have done that, because I think that Kevin was a rather radical departure from what the Deadheads were used to. Because he was coming much more from that rock point of view especially at that point.
Total Ted Nugent Detroit rocker thing.
Yeah, exactly. I hope his politics aren't like Nugent's, but
yeah, I mean, listen, man. I mean, after this election, it's all up in the air at this point. But no, he said that he met you, I think, somewhere in the South Bay. His band was playing, but to me, it's like he said you called him and you're like, do you want to go down to the vaunted Front Street Studios to play with?
Right. Yeah, I think I brought. I don't remember why or how I brought him in, but it was like I brought him in, and I mean, it was it was definitely different. I think that out of the bands that I have with Kreuzman and Midland, I think Jerry Cortez was easier for the Deadheads to relate to. Just because he was more like, blues or less flashy, and probably could mode to the Garcia mode model a lot more than,
absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that I could definitely see Billy doing that, because I think some Deadheads were like, what is this crap, So, yeah, I do remember.
I could have. I mean, I just,
yeah.
it's funny because I think he relayed a story too about, MTV was just in its infancy at that time, and when they came back from that tour, he went to see Billy, and they were just ragging on, like, you know, MTV and this, that, and the other, and then within 3 years or 2 years, you know, the Dead had hit Touch of Grey, you know,
right.
which was all over.
Well, like in that same note, when Santana used to play Las Vegas, Carlos was always, I hate this place, you know, blah, 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 what are these people doing? This is grotesque. And now the guy lives there, so you never know.
Yeah, right.
You never know how people change or times change or what happens, you know. Jake, you asked a question before. You were talking about African music.
Yes,
and I just wanted to touch briefly. I got way deep into African music for a while, and to the point of my ex is from South Africa, and we used to go to South Africa every year. So I would, you know, try and find out what was happening there and go hear a lot of great cats.
I need you to talk about this. So she was from like Johannesburg or Cape Town?
Outside. Well, we would go to Cape Town every year and visit the family and stuff, but I don't want to talk about that. But I want to talk about music.
Yeah, please.
So I would, you know, there was some happening, but one year I timed it to where we could make it work to go to Mali, and
oh boy,
they were having. This was back when you could actually go there.
Right.
Unfortunately, now you can't.
I know, dude.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
But we went to this music festival on the river. It was I think on the Nile in Ségou.
Mm.
And man, Salif Keita, Youssef Teneur, just 3 days straight of just, and to me, the music from Mali is as far as Africa, is what I'm way deep into, because harmonically, besides rhythmically, it's got so much going on. I mean, that was a huge influence on Zalinol, too, if you listen to his stuff from after Weather Report. It was kind of a plug that. I want into African music for a while.
Okay, but I want to. How is, like, because I just interviewed Chico Freeman, and he did an album called The Kings of Mali. And
wow.
Yeah, and so I mean, how would be, like, could you differentiate in lay terms the density of the African rhythms as opposed to what was going on in Lagos or even in Johannesburg? I mean, how was it to you? How was
totally harmonically way more advanced? There was, you know, normal African changes are kind of they're sort of a different version of American rock changes, which, like, you know, 1-4-5, which means, like, you know, G, C, D chord kind of, and they'll take those three chords and just play them forever with different stuff on top and, you know, different loops or whatever. Where Mali just it's really hard to follow because it's just really complex. And
I guess also, this is really important because I've been talking to bass players relentlessly. In fact, the guy who's the new bass player with Dead and Company, Lesh is not the bass player with the Dead and Company. He's a guy, Oteil Burbridge, and
he's a great player, African guy. Yeah.
Oh, he's bad, and we just talked we did an interview last weekend, and he said that there's harmonic melody and then there's rhythmic melody. And rhythmic melody is really strong in African music. And he basically said what he was trying to say was how he learned to play odd time signatures was not by it was just by feel. He'd find the pulse.
Right.
And could you talk about, is that how you was part of the intoxication for you? African music was the rhythmic melody that often.
Oh yeah. I mean, the rhythm melody is so strong along with what's going on underneath, and it's what's really weird is some of the odd time signatures I had a really hard time figuring out. It's like you have to feel it. You can't count it. It's just. I was in Madagascar 3 years ago, and they had some really, really interesting odd time stuff going on. And it was sort of a 6/4, but it was completely different than that at the same time too. So it was like, what are these guys doing? I can't figure. And I'm trying to talk to a couple of guys. Say, hey man, can you explain this to me? No way.
You can't do it in because this is. So do you when you first would go back, would you do? Because it's such a. I mean, I talked to these other cats that they went on these pilgrimages in Pakistan or Africa. They wind up outside and some guys playing in the meter of 17 on a tambourine, and they're counting it out. It's like this is part of everyday life. Did you bring your bass? Would you be able to play? Did you have indigenous sessions where you would play with these cats?
No, I didn't there. There I would just more listen and ask questions, and
they wouldn't answer them.
And they would kind of try, but they really couldn't because if, putting it into Western musical terms was difficult because it's just so much more of a indigenous feel thing. I went to Cuba, I don't know, 15 or 16 years ago, I think it was, and studied there, and I did take my bass and ended up sitting around with a lot of cats after I went to school there. And after school, we would, the bass players that were teaching in the program would take us over to their friends' houses. And it was myself and a bassist from New York named Harvey Schwartz, who's a great jazz bassist.
Harvey Schwartz, I love that dude. That dude's a badass.
Yeah, he's a badass.
Oh, my God.
So Harvey and I would go over and just
When
hang
did you
out.
guys first connect? I didn't know you. I mean, he was on that dude was playing Roy and Irene Krall records. Just disgusting bass on that.
Yeah, right. No, I met him on this trip to Cuba. We both signed up for this program where we were going to school every day for a couple weeks, learning. Back then I really wasn't that hip to timba, and when I got there, I was like, I was used to just playing straight timbal kind of salsa. And when I got there, it was like, wow, man, this stuff's crazy. It's like a combination of funk and Latin and just jazz, and it was just like, it was murderous. And it took me like a good week to just be able to start to understand it. And then I got deep into it, and it was really cool. So that was a really fun trip.
I could talk to you about this stuff. I mean, I guess in summation here, we wrap up a quick set 2 here with Margen. But is there a way to point to the most inspirational musical moment of this year? Something that really was truly inspiring to you that keeps that fire, that going back to the 12-year-old Margen, keeps it burning? I mean, obviously you're a student. You're a street scholar. You've been at the pinnacle. The gold records are proof of it. What still keeps you burning? Is there something you could point to that was inspiring for you this year?
We did one gig this last year, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and it was with Sunday Paper. And we had a special guest that week. We had 2 guests. We had 3 guests. It was a guy named Eddie Minifield, who was a sax player that played with Prince and Sheila E. for a long time. He was an old Berkeley High alumni of mine. Mm-hmm. And he plays kind of like Maceo Parker. I mean, just funky as hell. I mean, just, and he was on the gig, and a singer named Fred Ross, and we actually had a sub drummer named Bryant Mills, who's also a great drummer. Super funky. He grew up with Dennis Chambers, and they kind of play really similar. He's from Baltimore, and I just remember we had a really, really magical night doing some stretching and some like funk rock that was just outrageously funky.
Is there a way to? I mean, is this stuff being recorded? I realize City Section stuff from '83 is kind of hard to get a hold of, but I mean, are we?
We are. There is some people recording some. They're actually. We did actually tape that night, and I've been meaning to get together with Jeff and mix it down and try and post it someplace because he has the data on it or something, and but we actually haven't gotten together yet to mix it down. But there's some stuff on there that I definitely want to.
I want to hear what gets you off in 2016. Because that's what it's about, Margen. And listen, man, it was. Thank you so much for doing set 2. I'm gonna I'm gonna be after you again real soon. But
let's do set 3. This is fun, man. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I love you, man. Happy Thanksgiving.
And I love your show, man. You just you bring it out to people, man. And you're great. And so I really thank you for keeping it alive and interviewing so many great cats. And so keep it going.
Thank you, brother. Love all. Straight ahead, Margen. All right.
All right, man.
All right,
Take care.
Be good, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Another heavy day on the Jake Feinberg Show, but as many a guest has said, Roper, we'll just never stop. That's it for now. We'll be back next week. Thanks to everybody. Peace.
For quite a while. I've been around the world a few times, but I don't understand. I just like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues and let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. So when you wake up in the morning,
You're on a gig.
and ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it, you ain't got nothing but the blues no way, baby. Or either your old lady gonna do yakking you and arguing with you, telling you want you to get up and do something.